All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, elder bishops, elders who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. It's like peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Quanah Watt from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And there's a lot going on as of right now, man. If you've ultimately been, walking circumspectly, right, looking around, paying attention, right, through the spirit, right, then as brothers have been saying, Operation Warp Speed, is in full effect, right? Donald Trump just ultimately passed and signed an executive order to establish the Genius Act, man, which is, ultimately going to open up the door, for the fulfillment of Revelations 13 and verse 16 and 17, which is the mandatory implementation of the Mark of the Beast, which is the RFID micro CHIP, and again, these different acts like the Clarity Act, the Genius Act that just got signed in, and the Stable Act, are basically, that framework, right, that legislation, right, that framework for, right, that mandatory implementation, right, which is very beautiful, right, it's heavy and very important, right, in a historical moment, because this is the next major prophecy that's ultimately going to take place, which is, right, Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, again, right, Revelations 13, verse 16 and 17, right, we are in those times, right, which is the next major prophecy to ultimately pop off. And then immediately after that, we got World War III, and this is ultimately the center point of this lesson, right, is, World War III, right, because I came across this article on the Newsbreak app. It says results of nuclear attacks in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, right, and, as we're going to get into it, this attack, right, this nuclear attack that's going to happen to America, right, because it is prophesied that there will be war on American soil. This nuclear attack that's ultimately going to take place isn't just going to hit select states, man. It's going to hit the whole land of America. It's going to hit the whole land of America and destroy every inch of this place, man. America will be that lake of fire. But again, this is heavy, right? You have a bombardment, right, that just happened from Russia into Ukraine, drones, cruise missiles, and whatnot, right? They just ultimately did a major, attack on Ukraine, and they're going back and forth, and Vladimir Putin, right, ultimately warned of a nuclear Armageddon, so nuclear threats, right, are are being had again and again, right, and it's only going to continue to get worse, right? You got the small hats right over there. They're at war with Syria, Iran. America, is at war with Iran. You have Ukraine at war with Russia, and America backs both these nations, right, that are causing these problems, which eventually, right, you're going to have a conglomerate of nations, right, as we read in Jeremiah the 50th chapter, beginning at verse 9, you're going to have a conglomerate of nations that are going to come up against America, right, to destroy America because of the wickedness, right, that is pushing in the earth, right, the deception that is pushing in the earth. Matter of fact, let's jump to that. I have Jeremiah the 50th chapter and verse 21, and I want to read this. Actually, we'll jump up and we'll come back to that. Jeremiah 50 and verse 9 in the KJV. Actually, we'll read it in the NLT. It said, "For I am raising up an army of great nations from the north." Right? And that north country being Russia. Right? Russia being the main country that is ultimately going to press the button, that nuclear button, that red button, right? To fire those nuclear missiles on who? America, right? Which we know in the scriptures is Babylon the Great, right? The virgin daughter of Babylon, right? And again, those nations that are going to be with Russia, are ultimately going to be, Russia's allies, as we read in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, talking about the Persians, which are also the Carmanians, right? In 2nd Esdras 15th chapter, right? You have the Libyans, the Ethiopians, right? As well as other different nations as well, nations like China, right? And again, eventually, right, you're going to have even America's allies, teaming up, with Russia and Russia's allies to fire against America. Because recently there was an article, which I don't know if I have it in here, which I have this one saved, but let's see. I don't think I have it. No. But it was basically saying that, a whole bunch of, different European nations, are ultimately saying that they're going to be, pulling away from, or that their relationship with America, right, is not the same as it was, right, that it's more distant, and we're going to continue to see that happen, and that distance, right, grow between America and America's allies as things progress, because America is making moves that aren't beneficial, right, to any of their allies, right, with this whole attack on Iran, right, and Iran threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, right, which I think it was like 60% of the European oil comes through there, right, comes through the Strait of Hormuz to Europe. I think it was a 40 to 60%. I know it was a huge portion, man, almost half or just over half, of their oil comes from Iran, right? So America ultimately attacking Iran, it's not in favor, right, of America's allies. And see, America has continued to make these different moves, right, that are in favor of only itself, and eventually that's going to cause America's allies to turn against them, right? And we can read that, and we'll come back to this in Revelations 16, and was that verse 17? No, 17 and verse 16, right? It says right here, it says in the KJV, it says in the 10 horns, right, which is going into the EU nations, right, those vassal states, right, of America, right? It says, and in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, right? Because again, all the different decisions that America is making, right, not in the interest of the collective, right, but interest of its own self, right? It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, which means they're going to be using those ICBM nuclear missiles against America, right? Again, right, going back to that conglomerate of nations, right, that are ultimately going to be coming up against America, right? Eventually, you're going to have America's allies, right, teaming up with America's enemies, right? It says what? For lo, I will call, it's like NLT, verse 9, for I am raising up an army of great nations from the north. They will join forces to attack Babylon, and she will be captured. The enemy's arrows will go straight to their mark. They will not miss, right? They're not going to miss, and it's going to be complete and utter devastation, which is what this article, right, goes into, right? It says results of nuclear attacks in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Again, just to remind you, this attack is not just going to hit these certain states, it's going to hit all of America, right? It says right here, it says tensions with Russia are rising, and the subject of a nuclear attack is back on the table. Should the USA be targeted, El Paso, Texas, and Arizona will be hit hard, right? all of America will be hit hard. Let me get rid of that shit. It says Newsweek used maps produced by a professor and historian of nuclear technology named Alex Wellenstein to determine the impact of Russian nuclear strike using their most powerful missile. One in the El Paso range, which extends well into Mexico and as far north as Alamogordo, would kill 849,010 people and injure 952,950. Right? That's just one. Right? In the El Paso range. Right? It says the news article says a mid-air blast would have minor effects almost 4,000 miles from the point of detonation. 4,000 miles. That's one nuclear missile, right? In America, right, from point to point, right? So you go from the bottom of California all the way up to Maine is roughly about, what, 3,500 miles? Right? So that we're talking about the whole, we're talking about all of America would be affected, man, with minor effects just from one nuclear missile, right? It says broken windows, maybe light structure damage, etc. The most immediate effects in the main blast zone are pretty horrifying. It says the fireball radius, inner yellow circle, in which everything would be vaporized by intense heat, rising to millions of degrees Fahrenheit. And I seen another article, right, for a 350 megaton nuclear missile, right? We're talking about the center blast can get up to 300 million degrees, right? A 50 megaton, right, nuclear missile can get up to what? 100 million degrees. So we're talking about millions of degrees, and we understand that Russia has something called the Sarymat 2 missile, you know, which I think that missile alone can hold up to like 11 to 16, if I'm not mistaken, right? Somewhere in that range, warheads, right? Each one being 50 megatons, you know, which is a whole shit ton. We're talking about anywhere from 4 to 5, you know, or anywhere from 5 to 700 megatons, or 5 to 700 megatons of nuclear hellfire within one nuclear missile, right? It says would reach around 15.1 square miles. That's huge. That's a huge fucking radius, man. 15.1 square miles. That's just the immediate blast right here. Right? We're talking about the whole center of a city just completely obliterated, right? It says the more moderate blast damage radius, inner gray circle, covering 442 square miles of the blast, would destroy residential buildings and probably cause widespread fire. So everything going to be on fire. Within we're talking about damn near if not the whole state. 442 square miles, the whole state, depending on what state it is, will be on fire. Right? It says anyone within 2,360 square miles of the explosion, the thermal radiation radius, wider orange circle, would be at risk of suffering third-degree burns throughout the skin, often painless because they destroy the pain nerves, which can cause severe scarring, disablement, and require amputation. So basically, right, because at that point, hospitals and shit like that will be destroyed, right? Those people will be dead within the 2,360 square miles. If you're within that range, you're either obliterated, on fire, or you're dealing with the nuclear fallout, right? That radiation, that blast, and that radiation that's going to be destroying you, eating you alive. You know, which is part of that plague, right? That's going to hit America, right? Let's go ahead and touch on that in Zechariah. It's like it. Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 12. It says in the KJV, it says, "And this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, will smite all the people that fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet." And that goes into that nuclear radiation, right? We just read it. right? That nuclear radiation within that 2,360 square miles, right? Everyone that's, you know, outside the blast, outside those inner 2 blast radius, right? If you're within that 3rd blast radius, you're going to be dealing with that nuclear radiation. Your skin's going to be 3rd degree burns all over your body, you know. And when you watch, you know, certain videos or read certain articles on radiation, it can have an effect to where your teeth start falling out, you know. Your flesh starts falling off of your body. It gets really gruesome, man, right? And it says right here, it says, their flesh shall consume away that while they stand upon their feet, their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. So again, right, that's going into that nuclear fire that's ultimately going to be, you know, that's ultimately going to come through, right? And then all as well as you got to deal with that radiation, man. So it's going to be extremely bad. This is that plague that's going to hit here in America, right? Let's go back to it, right? It says, how many would be hurt or killed in a nuclear blast? It says, based on the average number of people in the area during any given 24-hour period, right? And this should give you some, data, right? It says Houston, right? It says 1,238,500 dead, almost 2 million injured. Dallas, 1,045,700 dead, almost 2 million injured, right? San Antonio, 761,480 or 840 dead, 754,110 injured. Albuquerque, 417 dead, 417,980 dead, 300 and almost 360,000 injured. Here in Phoenix, it says 972,050 dead, almost 1.5 million injured, right? That's a lot of fucking people being put to death, right? Just based off of one nuclear missile. This is literally going back up to the top, right? It says, right, I'll read these 2 paragraphs. It's Newsweek used maps produced by professor and historian of nuclear technology. It says Alex Wallenstein to determine the impact of a Russian nuclear strike using their most powerful missile, one in the El Paso range. So this is just based off of one hitting the El Paso range, right? El Paso, Texas, which is right there next to the Mexican border, right? The Mexico border, and right next to and connected and touching Arizona, right? Just one in that area would cause this much, right? Just one, right? And it says, what about other cities? You can use the same interactive map Newsweek did to nuke the city of your choice and to see the results based on different types of bombs and detonations, right? Just drag the cursor to the city you want to fill, blah, blah, blah. And that's ultimately the point, man. But the scriptures, again, it's not just going to be one, right? Scriptures talk about 200,000. Let's go ahead and look up that. Thousand. Right here. Revelations chapter 9 and verse 16. It says, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them, right? So when you do the math on that, that's 200 million, right? 200 million nuclear warheads that are going to be fired here on America, right? It says right here, I'll start at verse 15. Revelations 9 and verse 15. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. Now that third part of men is going into, the wicked, right? The sons of perdition, right? You got the sons of God, which are the Israelites, right? You got the sons of men, which are the heathen, right? And you got the sons of perdition, which are the Edomites, right? And their place is here in America, right? It says, and the number of the army of the horsemen, right, were 200,000, and I heard the number of them, which again is going into those nuclear right here. And you said right here, it says right here, verse 16, it says, I heard the size of their army, which was 200 million mounted troops. Now, again, this is not talking about actual ground troops. This is talking about nuclear missiles, man, right? Which we read in Joel, the 2nd chapter, right? It talks about that army, right? We'll start at the top, right? This is it says the terrible visitation. This is what's coming to America, right? Joel 2 and verse 1, it says, blow ye the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, which we're blowing that trumpet now, right? Warning, right? It's a warning. When you blow a trumpet, it's ultimately a warning, right? When you go back into the, the people that stand upon the towers and they watch, right? When they see an army coming, or they see, some kind of issue or problem, what do? They blow the horn. They blow that trumpet as a warning. Hey, trouble's coming, right? This is what we're doing through the Spirit, right? It says, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai cometh, for it is nigh, and it's nigh at hand right now, right? Again, right, as it said in the article, right, nuclear threats are back on the table, right? Putin, ultimately threatened nuclear Armageddon, right, against America, and those who side with America, right? Verse 2, it says, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, right? And this is not talking about an actual people. This is talking about those nuclear missiles, right? A great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. It says, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. Meaning that fire is going to propel them, right, to go where they need to, and when they hit, it's going to be complete and utter, devoured, right? It's going to be destruction, right? It says, the land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them, right? Now, they're going to make this America a complete and utter wasteland, right? It says the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Right, man, right? People don't have a fire that is before them, and a flame that devoureth, after them. People don't do that. So this has to be talking about a missile, or an arrow, as the scriptures call it, right? An arrow, which is a nuclear missile, right? It says, before their face the people shall be much pained, and all faces shall gather blackness. These people are going to be in fear when they see this, man. They're going to be in fear when they see these missiles and these missile sirens and whatnot being, sounded off. These people are going to be in fucking straits, man, right? It says, they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march everyone on his way, and they shall not break their ranks. Meaning they're going to stay in there. And when the path is laid out for them and they get shot off, which the path is already laid out, right? When they get shot off, that path that the Lord has destined for them, they're going to follow that path to the capital T and will not swerve nor veer off, right? And there's no way you're going to be able to stop these nuclear missiles. Verse 8, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk everyone in this path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. Meaning you're not going to be able to stop them, man. Right? And even America, right? You have this this new golden dome that, Trump ultimately signed into, executive order, right? Which is ultimately mirrored after the Iron Dome, of the small hats, right, over there in Israel, right? He mirrored it off of there and wanted to, basically make it better. But see, the scriptures talk about that this is a, land of unwalled villages, meaning it has no defense, right? Because America, even you having these missile defense systems, it's not going to be a defense, an adequate defense, right, to what's coming. Where we already seen that the Iron Dome, right, it was nothing, right, compared to the, Iran's, just regular missiles, cruise missiles and whatnot. You know, Iran exploited the shit out of the Iron Dome, man. And what do you think is going to happen to America? Right? That dome all of a sudden is just going to be good. Why? Because it's called the Golden Dome? No, man. As we're reading, it's prophesied that America is going to be destroyed. Right? Verse 9, it says, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. It says, the earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Because guess what? When they hit, them nuclear, mushroom clouds, man, are gonna be something else, man. It's gonna be, it's gonna literally cover the skies over America, man. With 200,000 nuclear warheads hitting down, if each one is 50 megatons, well, you have to understand that that's a fucking shit ton of fire and nuclear power that's going to hit America. Really, you can call it an overkill. But that's the fury of Yahweh Bashem El Shai being placed upon this place, man. Because of the wickedness, because of the evil, because of the disobedience. You know? It says, verse 11, it says, in Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? And no one. Anybody that's here outside of the elect of the nation of Israel, right, that remnant that's going to be delivered in those times, anybody outside of that is going to be destroyed that's still here in America, man. And this is the judgment that Yahweh Bashem El Shai has proclaimed against this place, man. You know? And I got one more precept, man, and we'll go ahead and close out. America finna be destroyed, man. Yeah, I got this right here. And we'll read this in the NLT. This is Jeremiah 50. And as you see, the header says the Lord's judgment on Babylon. Right? Verse 21, it says, go up, my warriors, against the land of Merathaim, and against the people of Pekod. Now, I want to grab that word, Merathaim, right? Which ultimately goes into what? Double rebellion, right? Let's grab it right here.
Strong's H 4850. Marah.
It's Merathaim, as you see, right? Which it went into the root word, but it's Merathaim. As you see right here, it says double rebellion. And this place is completely rebellious against Yahweh Bashem El Shai, man. Right? Scriptures talk about this is what? You know, matter of fact, it's in Amos 9 and 8. Right? The eyes of the Lord upon the sinful kingdom. Let's grab it. Right? It's Amos 9 and 8. It says, behold, the eyes of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai power, are upon the sinful kingdom, which is this place, America, man. Sinful. Right? Rebellious against Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, because sin is contrary to what Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai wants, right? Righteousness. Right? This place pushes, Moism, transformerism, right? It pushes, again, iconoclasm. Right, pushes different, false idols. This place is completely rebellious against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. It says what? And I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith Yahweh. Right, which again, going into the elect, being delivered, right? Let's go back, right? That Merathaim, right? That double rebellion, right? It says, Go up, my warriors, against the land of Merathaim and against the people of Pekod. Pursue, kill, and completely destroy them as I have commanded you, says the Lord. That's right, man. And that's what these missiles are going to do. Completely destroy America. Right? It says, let the battle cry be heard in the land, a shout of great destruction. Right? That besom of destruction. Right? That sweeping destruction that's going to come across America because of these ICBM nuclear missiles. Right? It says, Babylon, the mightiest hammer in all the earth, lies broken and shattered. Babylon is desolate among the nations. And America has been that nation that has been on top, been in power, right? And continue to, persecute these nations, right? With a continual stroke, as we read in Isaiah, being that damn bully, being that, you know, that judge and executioner amongst these nations, you know, in the world, right? And never doing it in righteousness, only doing it in wickedness. And this is why you're seeing these nations rise up. This is why you're seeing these nations, you know, coming up against America, man. Because of the wickedness and evil that they have ultimately spread in the earth and continue to spread and continue to try, right, to establish. These nations ain't having it anymore, man. You know? It says, listen, Babylon, for I have set a trap for you. You are caught, for you have fought against Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua. And that's exactly what we're reading. Right? Scriptures talk about in Revelation, the 18th chapter, for his sins have reached unto heaven. Right? The Lord is sitting here like, man, look at all this, man. Look at all this wickedness. Right? You stack, it's like as thin a piece of paper is. You start from the lowest point on the earth, right? The bottom, the Mariana Trench, the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and you stack every single piece of paper, one after another, from the very bottom all the way up into the outer space. You know? It's like you got hiccups randomly. But you do that, we're talking about billions, but trillions of sheets of paper. Each one, right, is a sin and wickedness that America has committed, and it continues to grow. That's a lot of wickedness, man. That's a lot of wickedness, and that's just one stack, right? Imagine this whole earth being covered in stacks of wickedness, or all of America, slacking at the whole, all of America, right, being stacked from the lowest points all the way up past. That's a whole shit ton of evil and wickedness that America has committed and still commits, and the Lord's finna destroy it, man. You know, verse 25, it says Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua has opened his armory and brought out weapons to vent his fury, which is these ICBM nuclear missiles, man. You read Isaiah the 54th chapter, the verse 16, right? He had created the smith, right, that bloweth the coals in the fire, right? Which create this instrument of destruction, which is these ICBM nuclear missiles, man. Right? They're for a purpose, for a reason, right? They're not just created, right, just to be there and just sit on the shelf and look dope. No, they're used to destroy this place, man. Right? Again, you're gonna have nuclear missiles that are hitting other places, right? Israel's gonna be one of them, right? The difference between those other places, right, and in America is America will never be built back up again. Right? Those other places will, especially Israel. Israel is going to be the epicenter of existence. That place is going to be built up according to Revelations, the 21st chapter, right? Tobit, the 13th chapter, Isaiah, the 60th chapter. It's going to be built upon precious stones, precious metals, gold, silver, so on and so forth, man. But America will be nothing. America will be a plain. It will be desolate, right? And said the terror that falls upon the Babylonians will be the work of the sovereign Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua of heaven's armies. Right? The Lord's going to do it. And the Lord's name, Yahweh, the name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, right? And his only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shah, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. Their names are going to be magnified in that day, as they're beginning to be magnified now. Right? More and more people are starting to see what's going on, you know, more and more, especially these other camps. Right? Now you got IUIC talking about, you know, digital currency and whatnot. You know? Bishop Nate talking about, well, they might throw, you know, a microchip in there. No, they are, man. Because that's prophecy, man. You know? We're in the time of Jacob's trouble. We're in the time of Revelations 13 verse 16 and 17, which is, you know, the prophecy which is to take place and to happen before World War III can pop off. But we're in the time of both those prophecies coming to pass. It's going to happen in our lifetime, man. It's not going to happen in 100 years. It's not going to happen in 20, 30 years, man. It was told that we were going to have all these different signs of when the end will come, and we're seeing every single last one of them. Every single last one of them. And they're happening at high rates. Extremely high rates, man. So we know what time we're in, man. America, Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai is finna destroy this fucking place, man. Right? Verse 26, yes, come against her from distant lands. Break open her granaries. Let's see, I want to see what that word means. Or barns. Right, storehouses, granary. Right, as you saw right there. Granary, so it means the barns. Right? Break open her granaries, crush her walls and houses into heaps of rubble. Right? Destroy her completely and leave nothing. Leave nothing. That's heavy, man. Verse 27, it says, destroy her young bulls. It will be terrible for them too. Slaughter them all, for Babylon's day of reckoning has come. And we're in the time where America is finna be recompensed for its wickedness, man. You know, we can't wait, man. Call law Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. America finna be destroyed completely and utterly. You know, finna be a complete and utter desolation. You know, as we read throughout the scriptures, man. You know, but that's all I got, man. You know, I just wanted to ultimately get into that, man. Was meditating on that. You know, seeing that article, man. Lord will was edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rechak, Wadash, double R, said the elder apostles, elder bishops, the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.